Okay, I think I'm emceeing this thing. I was waiting for somebody to tell us to go, but I'm smart enough to know that, if it's not somebody holding my hand by 5 after, go ahead and start. So we'll go ahead and start. How's everybody doing today? Good. Obviously, it's great for us to be back at PO Aviation, or at Army Aviation Association. It's great for me to be back in PO Aviation. These guys have been doing this a long time, and we have a great community. And certainly glad to talk to you today about that and kind of, if you will, nothing more than what they've been doing to achieve goals that have been set before us. We're not always perfect. We don't claim to be. But we claim to walk home every night thinking about what are we doing to make sure we don't let soldiers down. That's really what we're in the business of. How we do it just happens to be material solutions. But somebody asked me when I first came in as the PEO, they said, what keeps you up at night? And really the only thing that keeps me up at night, quite frankly, is that I might let a soldier down. And I don't want to do that. I've been in this business for quite a while and came to Redstone back in 1997 with the BRAC from St. Louis. That's how long. So we've got a great team. I've seen them do great things, and we're going to talk to you about a few of those things today. First and foremost, before I turn it over to the PMs to introduce themselves, and my understanding is the way the panels are running this year, some of you may have seen them already up here with their counterpart TICMs. Really their wingman in the formation. But before I introduce them, I'll explain to you a little bit about philosophically where I'm coming from. Hey, Sam. Good. And, where we hope to take really the solutions that we provide to soldiers today and tomorrow. So, as with all of us, we have experience and we learn every day. And something that over my tenure in the Army that I've learned from quite a bit is that really it's very similar to when we were brought in at a very early age and you looked at the mission or the purpose of why you exist. And you may hear one leader call it operationalizing the command, or you may hear another leader call it, really making yourself relevant. But quite frankly, it just boils down to what missions have we been given within PO Aviation. So for us, where I plan to see us go really in the future is as we boil down and look at really the mission sets that we're handed, for my PMs to continue to look at them that way and look at programs of record as really a mechanism by which we achieve those goals. It never changed. I never lost this name tag off my uniform. Okay, and so one of the things that we want to do is make sure that, if nothing more, that the people that depend on us to deliver capabilities to the battlefield understand that we don't view ourselves as scientists, theorists, physicists, electrical engineers, software engineers, logisticians, business management folks, test pilots, you name it. We view ourselves as U.S. Army soldiers in this formation, great U.S. Army soldiers and U.S. Army civilians in this formation. That ultimate goal is to provide capability. If what we deliver ends up getting a thumbs down from the user, then somewhere we missed along the way. And hopefully you've seen some of those capabilities delivered in the past that give you confidence that we're going to continue to deliver them in the future. And with that said, I'll ask each of the PMs to give a little brief opening, and then I'll do make a few comments on exactly a few programs that I do want to address with you today. I'll turn it over to Matt Hanna first.
Thank you, sir. Matt Hanna, I'm the Aviation Systems project manager. And so I'm just going to highlight a few programs that are really doing well within the portfolio. Aviation ground support equipment, they're in full rate production and fielding of the Aviation Light Utility Mobile Maintenance Cart flight line vehicle. Air traffic control is in production and the final production of the mobile tower system and fielding those assets. Aviation network mission planning is fielding the aircraft notebook software. It's not an actual laptop that assists with maintenance for the aircraft. And AME, Aviation Mission Equipment, is continuing to field radios to the fleet, support the production lines that the rest of the platforms have, as well as focusing on assured position, navigation, and timing, and anti-jam and GPS-denied environment.
Thank you, Matt. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve Clark, the project lead for the NonStandard Rotary Wing Aircraft Project Office, where we have a unique mission set and opportunity to build partner nation capacity and capability through foreign military sales of what we call non-program of record aircraft. And essentially that distills down to, if it's not a platform representative within my brother PMs, or if it's a unique configuration to that partner nation, we provide that acquisition oversight and procurement lifecycle management on their behalf. I'm pleased to say that in the past 12 months or so, we've delivered real capability to approximately 8 of our partner nations. That demand continues to grow, and it's been a very rewarding experience. So thank you very much.
Thanks. How about, so good afternoon, Colonel Rob Berry. I'm the project manager for cargo helicopters. So our mission is to deliver heavy lift capability, specifically Chinook, out to our users. We're organized along 3 product lines in our offices. We have the CH-47F that we're all familiar with, that we now refer to as the Block 1 CH-47F. We've delivered just under 400 of a total Army requirement of 473 Block 1s to our operational users. We're very proud of the capability that our users are employing this aircraft in every day around the world. Second office is our Block 2 office, so our modernization office. There we're seeking to buy back payload performance that has been eroded over time, as well as become more common with our special operations user. Third objective on Block 2 is really to ensure that we have an affordable pathway for future upgrades on the platform. So 3 objectives on Block 2. We recently received approval to enter into the development program, so engineering and manufacturing development on the Block 2 program. We'll begin production in 21 with the first unit equipped in 24. So again, that's the Block 2 program. The third office is our international office. So there are 19 countries worldwide that operate Chinooks. We are very proud to consider them part of Team Chinook. We take significant ownership in their ability to effectively operate their aircraft, and we're always looking for new potential customers. So I'd highlight the F is behind us to your left in the corner if you haven't been over to see a Block 1F. And behind us is the MH-47G. So in addition to the 473 aircraft the conventional Army operates, there are 69 MH-47Gs that Special Operations operates. They're managed in a different office, the Technology Applications Project Office. Different group, but we consider them part of our team as well in Team Chinook. So thank you. Look forward to your questions.
Hey, I'm Tal Shepard. I'm the fixed wing project office manager for Army fixed wing fleet. Sorry about that. Back in Huntsville, we're organizing the 2 different product offices. We have the transport aircraft, which moves sensitive equipment and personnel across the area of operation, and also we have a SEMA fleet that we manage as well, which is the ISR fleet for the Army. Currently have 291 aircraft in the fleet, heavily employed since the early 2000s, flying over 550,000 hours in theater in support of worldwide operations, moving personnel, equipment, and conducting ISR missions. Since the OV-1 left the fleet back in 1996, all maintenance is CLS maintenance for us, so we spend a lot of our time with maintenance of the fixed-wing fleet across the Army. We also have several programs of record. Most recently, the fixed-wing utility aircraft requirement was approved, and we are currently in a board that started this week to select the replacement for the C-12 and C-26 fleet. Expect contract award third quarter FY18 and milestone C second quarter FY18. Also, most recently in our SEMA office, we just completed a successful FOTE for the EMARS aircraft. That's the Enhanced Medium Altitude Reconnaissance Surveillance System. So we're pleased with the progress in that program and look to deploy those assets here this summer. So once again, Tal Shepard, PM Fixed Wing. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Bob Shibley. I'm the acting project manager for the Improved Turbine Engine Future Vertical Lift Project Office. So I've got the future programs in RV aviation, the two programs, Improved Turbine Engine program, which we just awarded 2 TMR contracts last fall to 2 different vendors. So we got those ongoing. They're going very well at this stage. So making good progress towards that, going towards a down select at the end of FY18, beginning of FY19, to award an EMD contract to one vendor to go forward with the integration into both the Black Hawk and Apache aircraft and qualify that engine to move forward. The other side of the house, we got the Future Vertical Lift program to where we just went through a material development decision last fall at OSD level to get approval to start looking at material solution for the capability set 3, which is a medium variant. It's a multi-service program, Army-led, with the Marines and SOCOM involvement in that. So we're moving out on developing executing an analysis of alternatives to come up with the requirements to help inform the requirements moving forward. And we're looking forward to supporting that and executing a program once we get the results of that AOA and the draft requirements coming out of the operational side.
Good afternoon, Colonel Billy Jackson, PM Utility Helicopters. So I'll talk briefly about what my office manages. So 4 mission design series for Black Hawk helicopter, and I'll talk a little bit about what those are and what we're doing with those. Light utility helicopter and common engines for the Black Hawks and Apaches. We also run a very, very robust foreign military sales business for all things Black Hawk, especially the Mike model. Demand has been extremely high for that platform. We don't see that changing. Obviously, the rest of the world sees the utility of that platform. So we'll talk about what's going on with the Mike aircraft. Mike's been in production since roughly 2008. We've collectively delivered to Army and to allies over 1,000 of these aircraft. To the Army, just over 840 aircraft. So we're coming to the end of our active cab fielding cycle this year. And the Army's going to pick up the load in terms of training new pilots. We'll continue to field that aircraft as it comes off the production line. On the Alpha model, the Alpha model, really, we're in the process of divesting all Alpha models. We do that through the Black Hawk Exchange and Sale program. And so we're finding good opportunities to use those, both on the commercial side as well as repurpose those for some allies. Very important program because the proceeds of that program feed back into our new production line. So I think it really epitomizes sort of our cradle-to-grave philosophy within acquisition. Our latest and greatest aircraft is the UH-60 Victor, which is an attempt really to take a legacy platform with technologies in the 60s and 70s and bring that up to the 22nd century. Digitize the platform, make it very similar as possible to the Mike model in terms of situational awareness and what it provides. The most important part is a digitized backbone that allows us to integrate new digital capabilities. And at the same time, we'll recapitalize that aircraft and make it extend the economic useful life for that platform. On the Lakota, we continue to deliver training capability to Fort Rucker. We're about 12 aircraft shy of our 187 aircraft requirement. Indications from our leadership at Fort Rucker is that's been a very successful program, and we'll continue to field that capability. Outside of that, that's it.
Hey, good afternoon. Courtney Cody, I'm the PM for Unmanned Aircraft Systems across the entire portfolio of unmanned aircraft systems in the United States Army. So in our project office, we're organized across 3 product offices that are focused on delivering capability at echelon to the Army. We got our Common System Integration Office that focuses on our universal products and our One System Remote Video Terminal, Tactical UAS, which is exactly what it implies, the tactical UAS systems that we have. And then our Medium Altitude, which services our division and echelons above division. So we're organized from a mission command perspective, focused on delivering capability at echelon. Down at the lowest tactical level, delivering that One System Remote Video Terminal, which allows that soldier in the foxhole to connect into the full motion video and the capabilities of the UAS that are in their formation, that are in their battle space. Then also at the tactical levels, the small UAS. So every formation, every BCT has small UAS in some way, shape, or form. Probably the most highest quantity aviation system that's actually out in the force, over 4,000 systems out there in the force right now. And so we're focused on refrequencing those, getting them out of the frequency spectrum that they're in right now and moving them to a new frequency spectrum. For those that you aren't aware, the government sold off the frequency spectrum where they operated, so we have to move them out, as well as the OSRVT, move that out of that frequency spectrum. Then moving up to the next echelon at the brigade level, we're fielding the V1, converting the V1 over to the V2 in the Shadow system. That's a Group 3 system, but most importantly, it's delivering capability at the brigade combat team level. And we're about halfway through converting over from V1 to V2, as well as fielding those into the combat aviation brigades, into the heavy attack reconnaissance squadrons, and a man-to-man teaming force design. Then at the division level, we're still fielding the Group 4 Gray Eagle, which is a multi-sensor kinetic UAS platform that services the division commander and helping them inform and prosecute within their battle space. And then echelons above division, we service our Intelligence and Security Command and our Special Operations Command with also a Group 4, but also with an eye on migrating to an extended range capable Gray Eagle that gives them greater endurance, still multi sensor and kinetic capability. So that's what we focus on in our office. We're organized to deliver those capabilities at echelons across all groups of UASs with the resident capabilities that they bring to the battle space.
Good afternoon. I'm Richard Tyler. I'm the Deputy PM for the Apache Attack Helicopter Program. Our mission is to design, develop, and produce, obviously, the Apache Attack Helicopter. We are organized into a production unit, and then we have two supporting, one sensor side and one is development and modernization. On the production and fielding side, we just signed our first multi-year for the Echo model program. Begins with Lot 7. We'll start inducting those aircraft here in a couple months. We're currently have produced 117 Echo models to date for the U.S. Army. On the development side, we have version 6 is the software development demonstration phase of the life cycle. The V6 program is the third phase of a three-phase incremental development that brings to the full baseline for the AH-64 Echo that was originally envisioned by the Army. So when that completes, we will have established the AH-64E baseline capability set. And like our Chinook and utility brethren, we also have a very robust FMS program that we are actively involved with a number of countries around the globe.
Okay, thanks. I will close this part before we open it for questions with a couple of comments. First and foremost about continuing resolution and budget stability. There are great impacts to our programs. We've had, 20 CRs in 15 years? So that continues to be a major concern for our branch chief. Lieutenant General McConville mentioned it as well, so that is fairly consistent. And how we maintain program steady throughout that kind of turbulence is quite frankly because of a lot of you out there in industry and because of a lot of great work by our team here back at home. We have over 3,000 folks that are really working hard to take what are really quite significant stop-starts in the budget and turn them into goodness. I will say this, we're very thankful that Congress approved anomalies for our multi-years. Both Apache and Black Hawk were approved as anomalies, Army anomalies for multi-years, so we're able to award those and continue forward. Those programs are not affected. Programs that are affected that you may be interested in are programs like Future Vertical Lift funding. There was growth in funding planned for this year, and that was to support the analysis of alternatives. Chinook Block 2 is one of them. Obviously, a growth in budget over the previous years, and we're in the business of executing. We're in the business of making that happen, and that was a program certainly that had great plans for the remainder of this year. We are hopeful that all these will be resolved. The last one is a program that's called BORS with us, and it's attempting to really synchronize and has been synchronized with the DVEPS program that Special Ops is running. They'll speak to their program, but the bottom line is that's another program that we would like to continue partnering with TAPO on and ultimately get results in, quite frankly, a revolutionary world. Nobody has really done pilotage in the helo world that we can find that anybody has adopted with confidence. So what we're after is really what's the initial capability that we can adopt with confidence so that the user will not turn it off on the battlefield. If we give him something and he turns it off, then that's not what provides utility to the soldier, and that would have meant we missed our mark. So we're staying very closely tied, but that's another program that's affected by CR. Lastly, future vertical lift. Bob's portfolio is getting ready for what is the results of hopefully a successful analysis of alternatives that will determine which option is chosen, whether it be the do nothing option, which I highly doubt that given the missions and goals that we've been given by the branch chief to look at, which is essentially, if you saw my brief earlier, you saw ITEP helping us transition a 225-kilometer mission set in 67 minutes. Well, he wants to transition across that in 30 minutes. So he wants to cut times in half so that if nothing more, we're there before the enemy's there with the decisive power that we need to be there. JMR, the leading tech demonstrators of which you've seen here, are tremendously important to that as well. So we're looking forward to their first flights this upcoming year and finding out more and more from the art of the possible. Those are really great efforts that have been partnerships with industry and our science and technology community. And our goal is to do the same thing we just did on ITEP, which is transition those technologies, if in the same exact form factor, that similar to how we did ITEP, we didn't have to change a whole heck of a lot. That seemed to be a pretty good solution for what we were looking for. If the technology demonstrators are what we need, help the Army move forward outside of the AOA and get to milestone A and conduct that process as quickly as possible. So with that said, I guess I'll turn it over to the audience. If you would, just help us by using microphones and also tell us who you are. Thanks. Right.
I guess I can run faster
Jen.
than James.
Yep.
Jen Judson with Defense News.
Yep.
I wanted to ask, Army's Mission Command Network strategy is apparently on a path that won't enable aviation to sort of communicate with the ground commanders or have the same operational picture. So I'm wondering, what is the Army doing to try to resolve this problem?
So I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Matt. Really, we are working with the Chief of Staff of the Army right now, as well as Brigadier General Mingus, who's the Mission Command Center of Excellence commander, to really see where we plug in and where the future goes. As you know, Army Aviation is an aviation component, but it is in the land domain. We're unique in that we are directly tied, as you say, Jen, to the ground force. So we don't necessarily build networks specific to Army Aviation, but one of the things we do, and Matt will talk to you about, is how do we make sure there's interoperability and that we don't lose critical links, because one of the general missions that we have in our business is do no harm, so don't let that happen, and always give them something better than what they had. So Matt, I'll turn it over to you if you would just kind of run through the basic ways we communicate in some of your programs.
Yes, sir. Again, Matt Hanna, Aviation Systems. So primarily we work with PEO C3T and PM Tactical Radio. They are the center of excellence for communications and radios and assist us with a lot of our networks. So we work with them. We also have a Mission Command network that we work through. That Mission Command network that we work through allows us to ensure that we are compatible with all the other networks, and that's like our Aviation Network Mission Planning product office. They have a lot of systems that plug into that Mission Command network. We also work on ensuring that the current systems that we have out there, radios and communications and systems, are sustained, and we work through Aviation Missile Command and the user to ensure that we're bridging that gap to whatever future the chief and the rest of the Army chooses to go down.
Right, and I'll add, largely what the Army and Mission Command Center of Excellence is looking at on behalf of the chief is really how does the tactical technical standard work when it comes to developing systems. So by that, what I mean is, do we continue to operate at the pace of whatever waveform, the latest waveform, and whatever technology allows, or do we set technical standards in place and say, okay, develop systems inside those constraints? I think he's heading more down that route to clean up, if you will, some of that. Again, the goal will be do no harm and make it better than it is. We don't certainly have issues right now. I think where we're broken in connectivity, we work with the ground force. Our ARC 231s work with SINGARs, and we still have BFT, so we have situational awareness and some of the. But as we move forward and the amount of data that's going to be transmitted through those pipes, that's obviously a huge concern, and it could overload if we're not careful. So we're trying to stay ahead of that. I will say this, Jim, before I know you may have another question. I will say thanks to Matt for coming. He just had a disc replaced in his neck last week, and he's here just to answer your questions. So take it easy on him.
Be nice.
Did they go through the front of your neck? My dad had that same surgery.
Yeah.
Looked like Frankenstein for a while. Glad you're recovering.
Thank you. I feel better
the
about
age
myself
difference,
already.
right?
I also wanted to ask about degraded visual environment. You started to touch on that. But if you can sort of update us on where you are with bores and what the plan is. I know DVE has been a priority for a long time, but it's sort of been murky what's actually going on. So if you can maybe add some clarity to the path forward.
Right, and I talk about it in context of bores and DVEPs. Those are the two programs. And I'll let Matt address bores. That's his program. DVE is really a concept. There's no such thing as a program really that is, at least that I know of, program of record called DVE. There's bores and there's DVEPs. It's really, doing something we've never done before. Taking us into either nature-induced low visibility environments or intentionally induced low visibility environments to be able to fight, similar to when we moved to fighting at the night. So I would argue that it's quite revolutionary. This is not evolutionary. Nobody's done it at 1,500 foot and below. I've talked to pilots that fly with systems that have similar capabilities, and they haven't quite been able to get to trusting the pilotage piece in the tactical environment, and that's where we want to get to. As you can imagine, flying in an obscured environment and not being able to see anything out your front windscreen, at about 10 feet or below, how would you feel? Me flying along 100 knots with you in the back. Probably not real comfortable. So what we want to do is get to the level of risk management where we can take acceptable risks and really bring about this overarching concept of DVE through the programs we have and make it a reality, at least a baseline capability. Matt, go ahead.
And so as we move forward with the BORS program, we're staying in line with TAPO and their DVEP's quick reaction capability. We'll continue to do that. At the same time, our user community is working on developing their requirements through a capability development document that started in worldwide staffing on the second week in April. So that will lay out our requirements long-term in an incremental approach, and they'll continue to work on staffing and AROC approval and potentially JROC approval of that requirements document. And
can you just give me a rundown on what the special operations solution is and how BORS sort of fits into that, or is now BORS look basically the same thing that Special Ops is doing?
So I won't comment on another project manager's program, but he happens to be in the audience. It's Colonel Scott Beal. So if you can find him, then fair game. But I will tell you that we are continuing to stay aligned with their program, and that program will continue to inform our program through BORS as we develop our requirements document and eventual milestone B.
Okay. I think I saw somebody crawl away on their knees. Might have been.
Thanks, Jen.
Okay. Good morning, gentlemen. Carl Purdy from Northrop Grumman. I have a three-part question. My memory is short, so I had to write them down.
Speak slowly.
Sure. Okay. In yesterday's early morning sessions, somebody mentioned a concern about, pilot shortage. So the questions are, one, does that impact Rotary as well as fixed wing? I think fixed wing was mentioned specifically because of airlines. Two, what steps are being considered? And 3, is the Army open to alternative options that perhaps are not your traditional options for stopgaps?
So if I understand your questions, it's regarding around manning and pilot shortages.
Yes,
Is that what you said? Okay,
yes,
so somewhat the wrong audience. We're not in charge of pilots training other than supporting the branch chief and what he does at Fort Rucker. So I'll just have to defer to him on pilot shortages and impacts throughout the fleet. Do you have a question regarding material solutions that we provide for them or anything like that?
No, sir.
So yeah, I would just redirect you to General Gaylor and his team.
Okay, thank you.
So, yep, thanks.
Yeah, hi, James Drew from Aviation Week. A question for Colonel Cody. Where does the Army stand with runway independent UAVs and the requirement there? When might we be looking at a program of record or some requirements coming out of? I know you're not in charge of the requirements, but when's that project meant to move forward? Could we also get an expansion on the EMARS platform and the program there, and where that's heading?
I don't want to disappoint you, but along the lines of what General Todd just mentioned, whenever you start talking about requirements, from a material developer perspective, I'm waiting on that requirement as well, so I can align programmatically, make sure we deliver exactly what the Army articulates in that requirement. So I'd refer you to the TICM. I can't hear you. There is a draft initial capabilities document right now that's in staffing.
So I think largely what we try to be is either the lead or the supporting organization. And in that regard, Colonel Cody is exactly right. We're the supporting organization. So we are working with the requirements developer, but largely rather than jump into their lane and talk about what they're thinking, I think it's better that we just let you know that we are working with them. And we are supporting them prior to making the final decision. So it's not like we're just over here doing our own thing. We work with them, we support them. And then when we become the lead, we'll be on it. We'll tell you what we're doing for them. But until such date, it's kind of premature. And then EMARS, I think.
Right, thanks for the question. Yes, we're very enthused about where we are with the EMARS program. From 13 March to 31 March, we completed a follow-on test and evaluation. All indications for us is that the test was successful. I don't want to get out too far in front of the test report that we'll get later this summer, but we were pleased with the way the platforms operated. It's a multi-sensor capability. Ultimately, it'll be 24 aircraft in the fight, 4 different configurations. So from the history of EMARS, that took QRC, quick reaction capability platforms. We're rotating them back through production in order to turn it into a program of record where we get it fully tested, sustainable, and get it back to the fight as quick as we can. We're looking at deploying the first 2 EMARS later this summer. Thanks.
Yesterday you mentioned SAT and Archer was getting deployed. Is that deployed this summer as well?
Yes, SAT and Arch this summer. Well, I'm not going to get into variants right now. Okay.
Take the mic back. We don't talk about really areas we deploy systems to necessarily. We'll leave that to the Army. Oh, okay. My bad. Okay.
Hi, Lee John Greco, Flight Global. Actually wanted to ask another tactical UAS question, if I can. So you're going to have a demo program that's similar to the JMRTD demo for tactical UAS. So I was wondering how that's going to shape. Do you have any preference for a VTOL tactical UAS versus something that is rail launched, or are you going to have those 2 types, or maybe, I don't know, there's a 3rd type of launching system compete against each other in that JMRTD type demo?
That's a good question. That's a lot of detail in there. But to really answer your question, it's got to do with that with the initial capabilities document that's being staffed right now in the headquarters DA, and how the Army ultimately consolidates on the final version of that and what gets articulated. And then how that informs or is going to inform that science and technology activity, which is really being done in our Army lab system. To get the details on that, that's in essence a program of record. So I would refer you to the S&T community. They can articulate to you exactly what that program looks like. But ultimately, it'll be focusing on those technologies that enable us to deliver a capability that meets the capabilities that are articulated in the requirements documents.
And, sorry. And when is that demo program supposed to kick off? Do you have like a rough timeline for that at all?
I believe their funding profile starts in 2017.
Okay. And just one last question on that. Going back to the VTOL preference at all, can you just tell me from an operational need, what do you see? Is there really any difference between having a runway-independent UAS that launches vertically versus one that's rail? Is there any kind of...
I think there's probably still a lot of discussion, and there's probably a lot of stubby pencil work that's going to go into trying to define exactly what that is, because it's got to be put into some type of operational context. Where do we think we're going to operate? How we think we're going to operate? And then how do we operationalize that into a material solution? How do we deliver that? And then ultimately, what echelon are we going to deliver that to?
Thanks.
Hello, my name's Mario Cafiro. I'm with IAP Worldwide Services. First, I just want to commend everyone on the panel for taking time to allow some questions from the industry. It speaks volumes for your the value you place on the partnership between the Army and industry. Earlier this morning, I heard some interesting comments. Wonder if you could expand on such things as the enhanced. The condition-based maintenance, and then you talked about enhanced scheduled maintenance. Is the Army quantifying the savings? I suppose in terms of those investments, are you satisfied with the return on those investments? And where do you see that going in terms of the future? Are expanding it, or perhaps revising it, or going to better technologies?
Yeah, I'll just say a few things, and then Billy, if you want to add to it. But really, one of the things I briefed in my brief, and I know General Gabram did as well, was the partnership to get to where we are today to extend those phase maintenance requirements out further. So return hours back to the commander, ultimately. Condition-based maintenance is on many of our platforms. I know the Black Hawk fleet has a significant amount. All the Mike models have a form of condition-based monitoring. The real key for us is, what do we choose to monitor? And where's the value in that? How would we utilize that? Well, I think not only units utilizing strain gauges and, basically data monitoring accelerometers that we have on the aircraft to date has provided us the information that we needed to be able to make those decisions. But it will continue to, and it will continue to help us realize additional savings in the future. Has it been monetized? Absolutely. There's no doubt that there are people that are sitting there today calculating the 0.47 man hours per flight hour that's saved by that change in phase maintenance, and what that means to us, not only in manpower, right, but also in dollars, precious resources that we utilize to sustain the fleet. So we've largely taken an operational approach. I think secondarily, one of the huge benefits is it will reduce burden in both resource and manpower requirements. Where we go from here is really hard to predict, and here's why. We started measuring vibrations on a particular component years ago, and we did it. Why did we do it? Because it was a target of opportunity for us. How can we then take data, offload data, digest the data, make decisions with that data? I have no doubt that there are many other components that we want to measure, both externally and internal to gearboxes, et cetera, that will allow us to make decisions to keep components on life longer. but we're not there yet. This is somewhat the first large step we've taken. I wouldn't even call this a baby step. Anytime you actually realize the benefit of monitoring, that's a big step, because it's probably one of the first that we've actually taken. Up until this day, the maintenance officers use that data, the operational commanders use that data, the supply tech sergeants use that data to forecast needs of components that will need to be changed out. But this is probably the first big step we've taken. We look forward to that, and then I'll let Billy talk more specifics about anything that he's got planned in the future or with this particular phase change.
Sure. Yes, sir. So first of all, I think to answer your question, we've seen quite a bit of benefit from the health usage monitoring system on the aircraft. General Todd highlighted one episode. The data, the CBM data we've collected for over 10 years using that system has allowed us to change our preventative maintenance cycle, increase the length between the time we do that cycle. So from 360 to 480, not on the street yet. We expect that message to go out and be official within the next month. And so that means a lot to our warfighters. So we don't want soldiers turning wrenches on the aircraft unnecessarily for a lot of reasons. One, they got better things to do. And second is, actually, their indications are that when soldiers do take things apart on the aircraft, there's a chance that those things get damaged and increases the cost. One of the challenges we did see with CBM is that we collect a large volume of data, right? So you have to have people that can go through that data, synergize what it's telling you, and then apply that back to other reliability initiatives, if you will, right? Or changing the maintenance schedule to either look less or look more in a particular area. And so what we found out is that we had to develop a system that was more user-friendly. So one, they understood what it did for them, and it set a condition where they were incentivized to use it because it gave them the information that they really wanted to know about the aircraft. And so we're in the process of building what we call Enhanced Digital Ground Station, which does exactly that. So more intuitive to use, and it gives them the information that they really want to know about their fleet, how they can better manage maintenance for those aircraft and understand the condition of that aircraft before they put it out on a mission. So the goodness there, when they use the system more, that transfers the data back to our team so we can get more data more quickly to evaluate and do these types of analyses.
Very good. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, James here again from Aviation Week. Earlier this week, we talked a bit about the problems that the continuing resolution will have for a couple of your programs. ITEP was the big one. The Congress just passed a stopgap funding measure for another week. I think yesterday it was said that ITEP would stop at the end of this week. How will this stopgap measure for 1 week impact your programs? And maybe if we could expand on the Block 2 Chinook and how that program is being impacted, noting that we're 7 months into the year, so we've already been operating under last year's levels for quite some time.
Right, so it really gets down to the burn rate that we're operating at this year as compared to last year. So 1 additional week of a CR, if I've already gone through all the dollars that I would have used, based off the ceiling from last year, doesn't do me any good unless there's an anomaly in there that allows me additional dollars. What would really be beneficial is that we would, if we have exhausted the dollars really from this year, that we had that ceiling put on us, would be resolution either through an anomaly, if there is a continuing CR, or a budget, some sort of budget. We're hoping for the latter. We're hoping that we can continue these programs as we projected. I'll let Bob speak and Rob speak specifically to ITEP, but suffice it to say, when the government reaches the limit of their spending authority, our spending authority, what we're asking the contractors to do is not charge any more to us because we can't. We can't authorize them to charge any more to us. What a contractor chooses to do on their own is up to them, but we certainly would tell them, hey, look, we're out of money. Please take a break from that until we can tell you otherwise.
Yeah, and General Todd really covered it. I mean, ITEP budget this year is about 3 times of what it was last year, so halfway through the year or more, operating at a third of the budget is challenging to get past even another week. So both these contractors are, at burn rates that are already slow and ramping up, so they're at the limit. So, we do have to tell them to stop once we're out of money. So another week in that case probably doesn't help a whole lot. What we really need is either an anomaly to go above where we're at and go to the budgeted levels for FY17, or a full budget to have money, because we have pretty much put on everything that we could under last year's budget on contract this year.
So yeah, it's certainly been well covered, right? But specifically to Block 2, same impacts as General Todd described. I think what I would expand on a little bit is this is complex work that requires significant effort from our contractors. So with all funding in place, contracts established, the work is still challenging. So what I would say is continuing resolution and the lack of clarity in our funds just further exacerbates what's already a complex task. So as General Todd described, it's not a instantaneous. In other words, a week doesn't necessarily change it. It just adds to the challenges that we face in executing our programs, which again are challenging to execute even when dollars are aligned as we would expect them to be aligned.
Hello, this is Philip Kwong with Intelsat General Corporation. My question is, what can we do to go ahead and make the acquisition process more agile and faster to field? Because I understand we're talking about ICD, we're talking about all the very formal, I get it, acquisition process. But the reality is that the commercial world is moving a lot faster, okay? If we just talk about maintenance, the Internet of Things, machine-to-machine language, artificial intelligence, all those things are being implemented right now, okay? And so if you're looking 15, 20 years down the road, honestly, that's already overcome by events. We're looking at huge opportunity loss where we can save time and save resources with really, instead of looking at a huge packet of money, break it down into smaller packets in order to go ahead and make it more agile. Do smaller tests in order to see what can we quickly implement that's already available commercially. Now, I know that's very difficult. I mean, we've talked about reform and acquisition for a long time, but I was just wondering what we could do to work together to go ahead and make that more agile so we can quickly field these things that are happening right now.
Right. So that is a huge question, and there's a lot of danger in there for me. So I'm going to be very careful in what I say. First and foremost, one of the things you learn quickly in this business is there are certain technologies that are commercial driven and there are certain technologies that are still military driven. Largely helicopters are military driven still to this day. One of the things that's unique is fixed wings are not. The fixed wing industry, I think we took proposals of basically non-developmental items that were already existent, and we will implement those quickly. We did that also with Lakota, if you recall, back in the day. We implemented that in relatively short order at a great economic order quantity. So my point in saying that is we are taking advantage where we can. With helicopter platforms, military funding generally leads the way. So we go at the pace of the resources we have. So resources are a constraint. Always are, but perhaps more now than they were 5 years ago. So that's probably one of the issues we have with speed, quite frankly. When people talk acquisition reform, they in general want to talk about the bureaucracy and the paperwork and the milestones and things like that. I got a lot of great PMs, and they're doing a fantastic job getting through a lot of milestones. A lot of people that can say no, quite frankly. The real place that we could probably work harder as a team, quite frankly, with industry. And I'm going to be a little bit biased because I just came from being the Deputy Commanding General of RDECOM, Research Development Engineering Command. And one of the things I learned was that they have a tremendous amount of flexibility in that world. We don't lock a baseline down on a program until a milestone B. So technically, that is when the constraint begins on the art of the possible. We've actually decided and made a decision. So one of the things we're trying to do in PO Aviation, and we've talked about it, all of us have talked about it, is working hard with MRDEC, in particular, Mr. Jeff Langout's here, the acting director of MRDEC, working with the other labs throughout Research Development Engineering Command to be better at communicating back to them. Here are the things that our requirements folks are thinking about. Here are the things that the battle labs at Fort Rucker are looking at. And could you please maybe help us in these 1, 2, 3, or 4 areas through a broad agency announcement, many different ways they access industry and some of their contracting methods to rapidly get folks on contract that want to either do a cost share, a CRADA, or some type of basic, government-funded effort, and maybe do some of that development for us. And I would argue that somewhere along the way, maybe it's because we're just so heads down working hard every day, we kind of lost who was on our left and who was on our right. So the number one way that I think we can actually accelerate development and the incorporation of technologies that are on that end of the spectrum is to engage our labs in a more proactive manner. We'll see several results. We'll see better answers in the end. We won't be guessing at what the answer is. And we'll actually have matured technologies to choose from that we don't completely rely on just industry to do for us. Okay? Now, on the flip side of that, maybe some of the things that industry does drive, or commercial industry does drive in particular, that would be largely for us at aviation under the skin of our aircraft, subcomponents. There are probably ways that we can actually rapidly make changes to capabilities inside the platform. I'll just mention 1 or 2. Colonel Jackson has Mike model aircraft. We're putting RNAV capability in it. We're incorporating a commercial technology, and we're integrating it so that the user sees essentially what he thinks is an integrated solution, but quite frankly, it's a federated solution. So that's a perfectly good example of how we were able to enable aviators that are overseas flying in ICAO, foreign flight rules, basically the version of our FAA, and be able to fly procedures that they hadn't been able to fly before. And technically, if we would have looked at it, we didn't have necessarily the requirement for stateside. So he's integrated something underneath the skin of the aircraft in a fairly rapid manner. That'll be deployed into Europe into this summer. So that's going to be a huge win for us. The other way that we could do it is potentially software and our interface architecture. I mentioned technical standards a little while ago. So when Jen asked the question about the network, one of the things that the G6 of the Army is responsible for is establishing technical standards for the tactical net, for the tactical architecture. So as they go about doing that, and we go about complying with that, what that should mean, if we do it right, is we get interface protocols correct so that we're able to adapt and incorporate things quicker. I would love to tell you that we did that in the past completely. We tried. We gave good attempts, but largely a lot of our open system architectures aren't open. They were advertised as such, but did not end up that way. The reality is, though, we can no longer afford to be in that same mode. So we have to be able to allow industry access to our architecture, and that's really what common interfaces will allow us to do. So in the tactical world, the G6 establishing the technical standards that I can tell you, here's kind of how we're going to talk. We're going to, similar comparison to cell phones, we're going to talk LTE. That's how we're going to communicate. So if you want to build a platform and you want to talk with me, you got to plug in via LTE. Well, same thing us, whether it be Ethernet or some advanced fiber optic wiring, and then here's what the interfaces look like. So S&T side, we can do more on the complex things that probably we drive. Commercial side, we can do more by getting those technical standards established. I believe we're doing that right now. We're in the very midst of that, cleaning some of that up, and then ultimately what we want to do is provide you the ability to port in solutions and offer them to us and us adapt them quickly. We will still have to go through an airworthiness certification process, because ultimately what that does is that buys down risk on our air crews so that when that aircraft breaks ground, we have high confidence it makes it back safely. So I hope that answers your question. I don't know, you got any more, Billy, you want to add to that? Okay. All right, I'm getting the signal. So first of all, I want to thank my PMs. Great job. It's not often comfortable for us to get up here. Try it. That's all I can say. See how you feel. Some of you guys get nervous when you stand up at these microphones here, I noticed. It's pretty interesting. It's not easy, but we're happy to do it. We want to be accessible for you, and we look forward to working with industry and all of you in the future. Thanks again.